Welcome, everyone, to a special edition of the Casino Guru webinar called All Things Gambling. This week is not just about recognizing the excellence in the gambling industry, as judges are expert on their field from all around the world meet and pick the winners of the prestigious Casino Guru Awards. This week is also about one of the crucial topics that shapes the gambling industry as a whole. More specifically, today we're going to talk about the importance of prevention in achieving safer gambling. My name is Denisa Vidumova, and my special guest is a CEO and co-founder of the Better Institute and a highly regarded gambling addiction expert, Jody Bechtold. Welcome, Jody, and thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is going to be really exciting.
Yes, it's gonna. I would like to start really without any further ado. I would like to ask you my first question because, I was wondering, we hear a lot more about prevention these days in terms of safer gambling than we had ever before. Is it a new concept that we are only now trying to embrace, or is it something the regulators and operators have been working on for some time?
Yeah, no, great question. I would say it's not new. It's been around a while, but I think that now more than ever, it is being newly defined, and a lot more shareholders, stakeholders, people involved are talking about it. When I first got into the field, it was still kind of taboo to talk about. It was kind of, you either were on one side of here's all the gambling, and you're on the other side of here's how you treat people after they've already developed a gambling disorder. So over the years, this RG, responsible gambling concept came out, but it's really changed a lot because RG several years ago was almost like just a checklist. Have we just met the bare minimum? And now so many are having the conversation about RG in a very different way that it's really exciting. It's a great opportunity to really shift the focus to be more proactive than ever before. But it's not a new concept.
It's not a new concept. Would it be accurate to say that prioritizing the treatment of a gambling harm after it occurs isn't as productive or effective as channeling our efforts into establishing strong safeguards to prevent harm from happening in the first place?
Yeah, and that's also a great newer way of looking at things. I'll be honest, I don't think we're ever going to achieve 100% prevention because from my training, my background, there are many other things that individuals might be dealing with first and foremost, and gambling and gambling harms is secondary. So to put the entire ownership and onus to prevent it 100%, I don't think is realistic, and I think it distracts from the better conversation. But I do think there's a lot that we can do. One of the key things that I think we have an opportunity moving forward is to literally change the culture. And I don't mean, yes, we embrace RG, right? I mean, when you're an operator, when you're in the industry, being able to, from the top down, from the bottom up and from side to side, literally say, we are in this business to keep this a social form of entertainment, to keep this entertainment just in and of itself. And by having the culture fully embrace that, then every department and every employee within that organization is part of that vision, part of that philosophy, as opposed to having this RG team over here while the rest of the culture or the rest of the industry is doing something over there. Really, I can't emphasize enough the importance of the culture, that vision, that philosophy. Are you just saying that you have RG in place? Do you just have it at the scroll at the very bottom of the website to find it? Or is everything you do and you say built around the idea of helping people stay responsible before it's too late?
Sure. That's a great point. So you're talking about changing the culture of the company, right?
Yeah.
To like something like ethics within what we do and to be proud of what we
Yes.
do. Great point, really. My next question is that you have extensive experience in your clinical practice working with individuals who are problem gamblers. And I would love to know your opinion about what do you think of the argument that many people use when talking about that are against stricter consumer protection, right? They say that only a very small percentage of people is actually suffering from problem gambling. And I'm asking you this because, as you know, we had this webinar with Mariska Tanya and David Richardson and Kevin O'Neill about customer care. And an interesting point was raised, suggesting that maybe the number of affected problem gamblers is low in comparison, or seems low in comparison to overall number of players. But the number of so-called affected others, like spouses and families and neighbors and everybody, significantly outweigh this number. So I would love to know your opinion about that. But also, I need to point out that the gambling addiction rates may be actually 9 times higher than the gambling industry claims, according to this landmark study that found 1.4 million people are being harmed by their own gambling, while a further 1.5 million are at risk. So what do you think of that? In a loaded question, I know.
There's a lot there, and I think all of it's very important. There's several different ways to look at this. When the industry talks about maybe only 1 or 2%, I agree with everyone that was on your webinar for customer care that the research is flawed. We could list so many reasons why the research is flawed, right? However, the important thing would be to say, how do we do better research?
What do we do about it?
We need to keep measuring, but we need to come up with more of a high standard that everyone looks and turns to. There's a lot of very good research methodologies out there. Everyone should be adopting agreed upon methodology and then keep doing time after time, year after year, and see what that looks like. I will tell you, you're right. I do a lot of treatment, a lot of clinical care for individuals and affected others. And so I see an overrepresentation because I see them when they finally have asked for help. The industry and customer care might not see everyone when they're ready to ask for help. So then which number are we looking at?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Then you take a slice of that in time, and what we saw 5 years ago is very different than what we see today. And with the expansion of the online ability and individuals able to be at home, sitting on their couch, on their mobile device, and no one knows, right? So then how are you going to measure that? So there's a lot there about the research and whether it's accurate. But then I take a different perspective. I work with people individually. So if you look at that individual perspective, you have to ask yourself, if it was you or your family member that was affected, would you care if it was 1, 2, or 90%? Right? The devastation's already happening. The shame, the guilt, the embarrassment, the thoughts of suicide, right? That is what makes that so impactful. If you take it at kind of what I would call like a meso level, right? The company itself, the industry itself, a country in and of itself, not yet globally looking at things, right? Then what are we looking at in terms of, is it a small percentage or not? How could we really be doing better research? Then you look at it at a macro level. You are talking global. We know, and I know firsthand from talking with other clinical people across the globe, we all see the same things. So there's something that it's not just one culture, one ethnicity. Like we really do see all the same things from the U.S., from Europe, from Australia. All of that. There's a lot to be learned, right, in understanding that. So I would caution about just talking about a small percentage. I think that's old school to say, well, if based on the data, we'll determine if something's important or not. I think again, if you go back to culture, if you really address this newer generation that wants that transparency, they want to know what the vision and philosophy is. They want to belong to something that they care about. Gambling is fun for a lot of people. A lot of people do it without developing problems, but people will still have their loyalty to where they choose to gamble and how they choose to gamble based on that vision and that transparency. So I appreciate the question, and I think that we are all challenged to be more innovative, harness technology to do a better job at research so that we don't all keep hanging our hat on that 1% to 2% number.
Absolutely. Great point. Because you have been able to work with individuals who suffer from gambling harm and extreme cases of it, as you pointed out, how do you think your experience can help the industry build safer gambling products and build them in a way that you suggested, that they're a part of the product, not just like accessory, maybe?
Yeah. Oh, great question again. Really, really appreciate these questions. I'm actually an advisor to some different operators today. Right. And so they have decided that it was important to build the organization, like I said, from the top down, the bottom up, and side to side. Right. And so it's been really refreshing to be able to advise how they might be approaching even where they put their opportunities for asking for help. Yeah. We know there's been a lot of RG strategies that actually are kind of negative, like don't let this become you kind of thing. It's got okay, great. Now I'm not going to ask for help. Right. And so really understanding how to tap into people with my expertise in different areas of what they're doing. What does their mission statement say? What is their philosophy? How are they communicating? Are they making RG, again, way over here where everything else is over here? Or is RG, they don't even call it RG anymore because it permeates everything they do.
Exactly.
Right. So there's a lot of opportunity for people like me to be advisors in small and large ways, right? Think about the data, right? We can harness the data in so many different ways, and using things like AI now, right?
Could be a big help.
It could be a huge help. Like I always say, I appreciate AI because if you know how to use it to help you, you will actually use it to help you. It's not really that difficult, right? To do good things. So the way that technology has expanded in offering gambling, the way using technology and innovation has expanded to make things stickier or make people want to stay longer, we can use that same technology to make RG kind of the way it is throughout the whole culture of the gambling industry as a whole. So there's a lot of opportunity for that transparency to the players when you look at it that way. So I would encourage the industry to keep talking to people like me.
Yeah, we would encourage that too. So that was actually my next question, that you said that you work as an advisor for these operators. Are they genuinely interested in your expertise and your knowledge and your experience that you are trying to help them? But are they listening?
Yeah.
Was my question. And how this cooperation looks like?
Yeah. No, you have to look at it in two ways. My involvement is for people in the industry that are creating something new. And so they're really building it from scratch in many ways. And so they're able to do it completely different,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're attracting the younger generation. They're attracting people for generations to come.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've taken the stance that they're going to have an entire product or offering of products that really does embody this entire culture we've been referring to. That's a very different advisor role than bringing someone like me into an existing organization that says, we've been doing, some data analysis. We're not sharing our data with anyone, but we decided we need to do some things differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a different role of an advisor in terms of whether they genuinely want to listen. My challenge to the industry is often, you talk about RG, you talk about setting limits, you talk about cool-off periods, deposit limits. And you say that you have them, but what's the data behind that?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the data showing in terms of different age groups? Because I also believe there's different RG concepts for younger generations versus middle versus older generations. So there's a lot more that can be done when you share your data, you're transparent about it, so that we can all keep having the conversation and being collaborative about ways to make RG more sustainable throughout the organization. So the genuineness does vary depending on what's the real problem that is trying to be solved.
Understandable. Do you believe that industry distinctions as Casino Guru Awards that you're now part of as a judge can draw attention to what needs to be done in the gambling industry so it can be safer for everyone involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the awards, first and foremost, are able to highlight and put a really big spotlight on best practices. It changes the conversation from check the box, I did the bare minimum,
to do something extra.
Doing something, do good and be good, right? It really, and to get the word out there. So it's, I applaud you for doing this, and for the second year, I'm excited to be a part of it again. I think that transparency then leads to trust. Again, you're building something that's going to be attracting the younger generation, a new generation for years to come. And you're harnessing some innovation in ways by kind of showing which organizations, which people in the industry won the awards. Why did they win the awards?
Exactly.
I found in judging last year, it was really, do they do RG? Period, end of sentence, right? It was kind of like, that's what I thought I was looking at initially. And then reading and learning from some of the operators how they're going above and beyond.
Right.
And so many people don't know it. And so the awards, can really not only highlight you won the award, but keep the conversation going, right? For the next year or two, till the next year of awards. So you're ultimately raising the bar, raising those standards that everyone should be measured against. So absolutely, I think the awards are going to be very, very helpful.
That's great to hear, really. My last question, probably, because our time is coming to an end, but I would love to know your opinion about what should be the main focus of consumer protection and RG in the future, in the very near future. As we are entering the time of market re-regulation in so many jurisdictions, what should be our to-do list?
Yeah. When you talk about so many different jurisdictions, it gets overwhelming, right? Because you think of, what does global mean? And who are all the players to that? You asked me about a main focus. The term I would use would be prevention-centric, okay? But what does that really mean? So it's kind of like a formula almost. The first part of that would be change the culture, top down, bottom up, side to side, right? The second would be the transparency. Are you willing to even share your data? And if not, why aren't you willing to share your data? I think that's been one of the biggest frustrations of a lot of researchers in the problem gambling space, is how difficult it is to get operators in the industry to agree to share. Like, if there's really that transparency, then an outside objective researcher can look at the data and everybody can look at it and learn from it, as opposed to look at data and point fingers, right? And say whether someone's doing something good or bad. And I think the last piece is true investment in research and in workforce development. So that's a big one, right? That could be its own question. The true investment in research, right? You're taking an industry that has really had no difficulty with its cash flow.
Exactly.
And yet, where does research and funding research, where is that a priority? Right? And if you're raising the bar across the industry, that even includes raising the bar on funding research, we're all going to learn from it and only get better, right? We know gambling is not going away. That's not really the message. That's not really the conversation. But how do you really harness the research and the data year after year and keep learning from it? The same is workforce development, right? One thing that I don't see in any jurisdiction at a consistent level. So I know there's some groups, so I'm not trying to say there aren't any. But if we're talking across jurisdictions, across the industry, potentially globally, right? Where is there investment in training workforce, training people like me, right? Getting certified to treat gambling disorders is not an easy certification. You don't just read something, take a test, and you get to put letters after your name, something like that. Like, it can take years. And there's so many individuals out there that really want to get into this space, but the incentive to get certified, the incentive to learn more really isn't there. So it's very costly, depending on where you are, depending on where does the funding come from? Is it an industry and a culture where individuals pay for themselves? Is it an industry and culture that it comes from a national system, health system of some sort? And is it prioritized? Because one thing we know is we all understand addiction, but so many people do not understand gambling disorders as an addiction, right? And when you train that workforce, that many more people can screen and address before it becomes problematic. So then you also are able to treat families and affected others. You're able to help someone that maybe is struggling at work because of their gambling behavior, and you don't want them to lose their job. But so much of this is undetected because so few people are trained in the workforce. So the industry has an opportunity to invest in the workforce in a way, invest in maybe large nonprofits, maybe not even just within their own country, but international nonprofits that focus on the certification, that focus on getting peer individuals that have lived experience certified, right? So then you're bringing together all the different players. So again, prevention-centric, right, is changing the culture, being transparent, and really investing in research and workforce development.
Great points. Great points. I would love to keep talking to you about this, but this is all for now. Thank you again, Jody, for sharing your insights and your knowledge. It's clear that taking steps ahead of time really makes a difference to make sure that gambling scene is safe and sound for everyone. So thank you one more time for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really helpful to really get to share my thoughts, my insights, and my suggestions with others in the industry.
We love to have you here. And thank you all who watched our webinar till the end for being a part of conversation. Please let us know in the comment section below your thoughts on the topic and what prevention means to you. And stay tuned for more All Things Gambling next time with Matt Smith, Head of External Affairs at Bet No More. See you next time.